see everyone on this Tuesday evening. And if we're ready, we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Community Development and Transportation Committee meeting for January 23rd, 2024. Elected body present, Mayor Kurt Wilson, Councilmember Christine Hall, Councilmember Alan Sells, Councilmember David Johnson, Councilmember Sarah Beeson, Councilmember G. Lee Hills, Councilmember William Morthland. I'm Randy Knighton, the City Administrator, joined by City Attorney David Davidson and Executive Assistant to the Council, Michelle Miller. The purpose of committee meetings are for city departments to convey information to Mayor and Council and discuss items listed on the published agenda by ordinance. The committee consists of the Mayor, members of City Council, and the City Administrator. City Administrator serves as chair of these committee meetings. This is a public meeting, but not a public hearing. Therefore, while the public is certainly welcome to attend, we did not take public comments or questions unless specifically authorized by Mayor and Council. Public comments and questions are received at regular City Council meetings on the second and fourth Monday of each month and on the fifth Monday in open forum. We do encourage residents to engage our online platforms, and if you have any questions or need information, please reach out to our staff and team members. In addition, if you have service requests or concerns or need to report a concern, we certainly recommend the City of Roswell web service portal, the Roswell app, and we encourage everyone to review a listing of events at roswell365.com. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the Community Development and Transportation Committee meeting for December 12th, 2023. I'll entertain a motion by Councilmember Beeson, second by Councilmember Hills. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We will note for the record that under Community Development, we show no action items. Under Transportation, as listed as item number 2, consideration to convert a portion of Horton Drive from full access at State Route 9, Alpharetta Highway, to one-way or southbound entrance only from State Route 9 to Horton Drive. Mr. Littlefield and Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, good evening. This is one of the first items we wanted to bring to committee. It's one of the recommendations that was in our recently adopted Transportation Master Plan that was adopted by the Mayor and Council just before the holidays in December. The background on this, I have some graphics and a map to show you exactly where this is located. This is on Highway 9 near Horton Drive, just about a mile north of City Hall. The problem is there's not enough sight distance coming out of the side street. We have about under 200 feet or so of sight distance, and ideally you want to have about 470 feet, given the posted speed limit on Highway 9 is 40 miles an hour. Some of the traffic stats on the screen talk about the traffic volumes. I just want to point out that 13,000 cars a day, that is the northbound volume only. That's not the entire road, it's just the northbound traffic. And then our speed analysis shows the speed limits are between 49 and 55, depending on the lane. Again, the posted speed limit is 40. And also some of the problem is accelerated by the downhill slope in front of the elementary school there. So you have traffic kind of accelerating down that hill into that valley about where Horton Drive is located. And Horton Drive is a not very highly used road. It just serves a couple businesses. I'll show you on the map, but it has under 200 cars a day, both directions. This is where it's located. Holcomb Bridge Road is up here in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. The elementary school is in the very bottom left corner of the screen. Horton Drive is right here by some of these used car dealerships and some of these old businesses that are abandoned, but they still use some of the parking lots for parking vehicles for sale. And there's also a large public storage facility here behind it. Here's the sight distance I mentioned. You can see Horton Drive here on the right. You can see the stop bar where vehicles are supposed to stop. And based on where the driver's eye would be, you'd ideally want to have about 470 feet of sight distance, but you can clearly see there are obstructions just based on the design of the road. Highway 9 was built decades ago, so this is just something we're trying to correct. Ideally, you want to have it, this is the current line of sight, and I have some photos to show you here in a moment to show you what the problem looks like. Luckily, we have a traffic camera located right across the street. If you know where Hugo's Oyster Bar is, it's right there at the corner of Alpine Drive, so we were able to capture some of the footage. I highlighted the vehicles over here. You can clearly see the vehicles have to go past the stop bar and block the crosswalk just to be able to see the road. And I highlighted in green what they're able to see, the traffic coming down or going northbound on Highway 9. And in the red shade area are vehicles they cannot see. These are blinded by obstructions, including the trees and these cars parked here. Same thing here, you have a large pickup truck. He's also having trouble seeing, and you can see all the volume of the platoon of traffic coming down Highway 9. So there's definitely a challenge here for motorists. Here is a driver view. I took this photo last week when I was out there with some passengers in the car. Wanted to make sure we got this. Here's the view on the left from the stop bar. You can clearly see, you can't really see much. You have to creep out and block the crosswalk to see it. And you can see this large pickup truck coming down the highway. You can just barely see it coming into view. So it is kind of a safety issue we're trying to address. Here's just some of the other photos we saw, just what was going on, just monitoring the traffic camera for half an hour the other day. You had some vehicles parked here. You had the sports car parked here for over half an hour. Cars are trying to come out. This guy came in. He's blocked. He couldn't move. He had to wait for this car to scoot up to get through. Another issue we saw is the car dealership was driving on the sidewalk to park their cars along here. We actually watched him back up across the crosswalk and back into that space just to get all the cars out there for a display on his front lot. So there's definitely some issues going on, and this vehicle is parked here for a good bit of time. So this is what we're considering. Our traffic engineer looked at this. This is a low-cost, easy solution if it's approved. We would simply make about 90 feet of Horton Drive one way coming in. That would still let access into the businesses here. The public storage doesn't have a lot of traffic going into it, but it would allow customers to get to the car lot. Again, as I mentioned, I believe these are abandoned businesses that the car lots are using to park their excess vehicles in them temporarily, so there's not a lot of current activity. One of the questions we had was, what if there's future development? All we're doing is talking about putting some paint in here and maybe a couple new signs in lane delineators, so this would be a very low-cost solution. And if this wanted to be removed or gone back to a two-way street, that would be very easy to implement. Staff could do that in a matter of days with council approval. And the whole point of this would be to route traffic out to Mansell Circle at this intersection where there's a lot better sight distance because Highway 9 is a much more straight, it's a very tangent section of roadway. We'd also place some signage here just to warn motorists of the pending change again, if it's approved. So just the benefits of this, it's obvious safety improvement. We maintain the inbound access for the businesses. There's a direct outbound access nearby at Mansell Circle. This was one of the initial projects in Tier 1 of the master plan that was approved. We did speak to GDOT about this. They are supportive of this project as it would improve safety at this location. And again, the cost would not exceed $2,000, and we have that in our supplies budget. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield for questions at this time.
All right, thank you, sir. Questions from Mayor and Council. Councilmember Beeson.
Could you go back to the slide where you show the specs?
The first one with the
Yeah,
traffic?
that one's fine. I worry about a conflict for someone who's exiting public storage. So the only signage that you have on this indicating what it is either the do not enter, and by that point, it's too late. I have no way to turn back around because the way the cars are parked at that car dealership, that's not their entrance. That's just their back parking lot. Their main entrance is a little further south on Alpharetta Highway. So if I'm coming out of public storage, hypothetically with a U-Haul, because those would go to storage facilities, and I get to the end of that street and it's, well, whoops, now this is a do not enter, there's no way for me to turn around a U-Haul at the end of this street. So I worry about the only signage being either when you're already on top of it and there's a car coming at you, and otherwise the Warren westbound traffic, no access to Highway 9. No access to Highway 9 I don't think is intuitive as to what you want me to do. You're just telling me that there's no access. Instead, I think there should be signs that are fairly clear indicators to Highway 9, turn left, to Highway 9, turn right, and direct them back out to Mansell Circle. So I just worry about the signage.
We could definitely revisit that, take those comments into account for sure.
Councilmember Hills.
Councilmember Beeson's in my head. I actually have 2 college kids worth of equipment in that storage unit and drove a U-Haul in there and backed it in myself yes. But there is, you can turn around in that parking lot. I'm not worried about impeding on their access at all, but agreed, the signage is key. And
Oh, I
maybe
mean, if
even
you're
on
leaving
the
public storage and
yes,
you turn left and it's too late, and you're like, oh, God.
correct.
Do not enter.
Maybe even put it, if we could, on the public
Yeah,
storage
I agree.
We can put a directional sign that
on their
faces
property.
the storage building.
Yeah,
Or
I
the
agree.
one-way only.
Yeah,
Great
one
point.
way
Thank you.
with a directional sign.
You don't want a 3-point turn, do you? I can, but I'll
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. It seems like a wise thing to do, especially correcting the signage, as my fellow council members have pointed out. My question has to do with, part of the issue is not only that it's dangerous left-hand turn exiting that, it's the illegal or the activity that's being done by they're not being good citizens, the folks that are renting that car dealership. And what have been the consequences for them? I mean, that's part of the reason that we're doing this. We're reacting to problems that they cause by parking cars.
So I did consult with code enforcement. They have given me the violation records of the businesses along here. A lot of it has to do with excess parking. So they have been cited in the past for parking illegally on the streets. They do leave their cars out there for a good bit of time. It's just an enforcement issue. So it has been a problem in the past, and as those photos I showed you, it's been going for a while.
So would that be a nuisance?
I'm not familiar with the definition of nuisances, but from a transportation perspective, that is an obstacle blocking the roadway for more than it's allowed, so.
So
Yeah,
that's a
as-
question for,
Yeah, as I was sitting here, I actually was whispering to David about
Could
that
we-
very
could-
issue.
could we-
And I was looking at the right-of-way where that stands, so I've written that down as well, so we'll pay the appropriate visit.
thank you, because if that could fall under one of our new ordinances that address nuisances and deal with the licensing of that, that would be great. Thank you.
All right, yes, duly noted, and, all right, we'll take a look. All right, any further questions, comments? All right, we'll then entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Councilmember Hills, second by Councilmember Morthland. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll move then to item number 3 as listed on the agenda. A consideration to update the City of Roswell's traffic calming program policy to incorporate approved types of vertical deflection treatments and permit transportation to consider and install approved vertical deflection elements into approved city projects moving forward. Mr. Cox?
Yes, thank you. So we do have a traffic calming policy on the books that was previously adopted by the mayor and council. It does allow or gives a pathway for residents to approach the city about traffic calming measures on their local streets, primarily in their neighborhoods. However, one thing it does not include is vertical deflection. And when I say vertical deflection, I'm talking about speed bumps, speed cushions, speed tables. The policies outline a variety of different instruments, including horizontal deflection, like chicanes, that cause people to slow down. They have to swerve or slightly turn their vehicle, which forces them to slow down. It also has other things like signage in the road, and it also includes our popular speed feedback signs, the radar gun signs that illuminate the driver's speed. So we have not had any vertical deflection in that policy, and also RDOT has been prohibited from putting these vertical deflection measures into our projects. That's been a topic of debate as of recently, given the recent task from staff to focus on traffic calming measures. That was something we really strived for in our transportation master plan. So we've had a lot of good discussion with our relevant departments here at the city, and it has been recommended over the past couple months that we move forward to include or consider approval for these speed elements such as speed cushions, humps, or tables for our lower speed roadways. I want to stress that is not for all roadways, it is only for our roadways that are 35 miles an hour or less. So that would include the bulk of any of our residential or neighborhood streets, as well as some of our collector type roads. So that's what we're here to propose to you today. This would include everything, and this would include these in our traffic calming policy and let RDOT include these in the future work scopes of our projects. I have some photos to show you of what exactly we're talking about. These are speed cushions. These are smaller elements. They're usually narrower. We have a couple photos here. You can tell they do not cover or transverse the entire roadway. This allows vehicles to clear them, like fire trucks and emergency vehicles. They're only a few inches high, so they can, if you're a good driver and you can guide your tires right, you can miss these things and drive over them, but they cause the bulk of vehicles to slow down. They're also very quick to install. You can order them and bolt them into the road fairly quickly. So that is one of our low-hanging fruits on these. The next one are speed humps. They're basically the same thing. Some of them are rubberized and you can order these components, or you can do a hardscape with asphalt or concrete. The main difference here is they're about the same height, but they cross the entire roadway, so they don't have the space for vehicles to drive over them without touching them. But you can see they cover the entire roadway surface. And then the third one are the largest ones, which are speed tables and or raised crosswalks. They're basically the same thing, except they're longer. They're roughly 10 to 15, maybe 20 feet across. And they're very popular for crosswalks, especially in urban settings. Some of our neighboring cities have these. You can do them in a variety of treatments, concrete, asphalt, or the brick pavers, and you can illuminate them with whatever different markings you want. So these are some good examples. And we can definitely put these on some of our roadways as we pursue traffic calming. And just as a reminder, in the Transportation Master Plan, these are all the Tier 1 traffic calming corridors in red. We've already started work on doing some concept stuff on Mimosa as well, given the speed limit has been now 25 miles an hour out there. So these are the corridors we'd likely be pursuing first. They include not only Mimosa, we've also come up with some initial concept work for Wavetree, here between Woodstock and 92, and also we're looking at repaving Coleman Road, we'll talk about here in a few moments. Pine Grove Road is being looked at here at the concept level very soon, as well as Oxbow and Grimes Bridge. So there's more on here, but I just kind of covered some of the highlights. Financial impact, the policy change does not trigger any immediate impact. It's actually a pretty positive thing, because a lot of these speed vertical deflections are low cost. They're a lot cheaper than the horizontal deflections, where we have to move curb and do a lot of concrete work. So we think there could be a lot of good benefit here at a minimal cost. So if approved, we would forward this to an upcoming council meeting, and I welcome any discussion.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions? Yes, Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. I know a lot of neighborhoods that are going to be, that will be very happy for these. Will the neighborhoods be responsible for the cost, or how is that going to fall into the request?
So the way our current policy reads is, if you're pursuing some of the low-hanging fruit, like signage, like you put those little pedestrian signs in the middle of the road, if that gets approved, the neighborhoods would pay 100%. On the hardscape stuff, like vertical deflection or the speed humps, the cost share would be 50-50. So we always ask for that money in the budget for the city side, so if we ever do get one approved, we would engage and share a cost of 50-50. So the neighborhood or HOA would contribute that amount. That's how the current policy is written.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
Goodness. What is the current standard for sightline? Like, do I have to have a certain sightline before you can put a speed bump up? And I can't just go around a curve and then there'll be a speed bump, right?
Yeah, ideally, you'd put these on the straighter sections. You can put them on vertical curves, but we typically want them on straight or tangent sections of road. There are some specs for curves. I think the minimum is 150 to 200 feet, depending on the speed. I think for a 35-mile-an-hour road, you want at least 200 feet of sight distance for a raised crosswalk. So I think that would work in most scenarios.
Councilmember Morthman.
Yeah, so I think you actually got it, Dave, on your packet, page 29, 28, I think, spacing, or not spacing. Yeah, I saw it was 1,000, I saw something about 1,000, but I wasn't
For spacing or sight distance?
spacing. I don't see sight distance, my apologies. Not bad.
I think they were referencing how closely you can have them together. If you're having multiple humps, that's the spacing between them.
Right. And I was referencing like coming around a curve and it's How much line of sight? Because, speaking of my neighborhood, we have a lot of blind curves.
Exactly.
And it goes right to where a raised crosswalk would be a great spot. So we'll make sure that it can happen.
My house is a perfect example.
Your house is a perfect example. Try not to go into your front yard.
People have.
All right, Councilmember Morthland.
In y'all's professional opinion, out of all these options that we're talking about, the humps, the bumps, the cushions, the speed tables, what's your favorite? What do you think gets the most amount of bang for our buck here?
I think it would depend on the area, where do you want to put these? What do you want the aesthetics to look like? I think aesthetics would be important downtown. Other areas might be more utilitarian. Just want to just slow people down quickly, without a lot of investment, get some cushions out there.
The feedback that we're going to get when we start talking about this with speed bumps is people are going to say, oh gosh, don't do speed bumps. That's going to be detrimental to us. But the contrast to that is, are we looking more for the cushions, the tables? I personally like the tables just because that does a little bit more for you as compared to just moving them down as fast as possible as you go.
I like the tables, I like the raised crosswalks, because it provides a visual protection for the pedestrian as well as you've got to slow down or you're going to go here.
The other comment I just want to make is we also have the option for raised intersections as part of the table. So you could make a whole intersection a raised element. So if you, like, let's say you don't put in a stop sign, you could make the whole intersection raised. It could be that large.
If the neighborhood was proposing it for cost sharing, they would probably want to choose, maybe they were cost conscious and would probably choose something like a home.
All right. Further comments, questions? Yeah, Mayor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Do you have, I think you got the raised intersections, Dave, in our book. Did you show it up here?
I didn't have a picture of it,
No worries.
so
It's pretty cool.
We can show you something, it is.
You've got them in here, yeah. You've got them in here on page 17, back at page 25, yeah. And to David's point, underneath 3.1 request and traffic study, you've got one second paragraph. You give specifics to the traffic calming measures to be considered the requested street, which is not exactly the answer to your question, but it does say the requested street must be a minimum of 1,320 feet in length, and at least 1,000 feet of each street must have grades less than 7%, and horizontal curves less severe than a radius of 300 feet. Not exactly what you're asking, no.
Right, but that's why I wanted a little more,
Specificity?
yeah, that's why I want a little more clarity
Yep.
on it, because, there's a lot of hilly, curvy neighborhoods in Roswell. And, I want to make sure that we can slow down the cars in every neighborhood that wants it.
That's a great point. So, Jeff, Dave, to David's point there, you're asking, obviously, this is based upon the traffic calming process. You're recommending that we go forward on it. And David's bringing up, hey, there may be some places where this doesn't apply. What do we do?
Still narrow the streets, you can do other methods of calming the traffic. This is just adding another tool.
Another tool to the toolbox.
So, there are plenty of places where we could implement this and it would be very effective and a lot more cost efficient. But if you can't, if you got all downhill and hilly, you might need to still narrow the street or do something else.
Sorry for the question, would it be possible to amend this process, based on your stated guidelines, or just pretty much it, in terms of what you're suggesting for the traffic calming program update?
We're just asking to add the vertical deflection, because we don't currently have that in our policy, so.
Yeah, you would add vertical deflection.
We would like to add this to the toolbox.
Is
We
there-
already have chicanes, narrowing roads, signage, things of that nature. So we
100%.
don't have this in
No, I think I'm with you and completely on board and support you 1,000%. I think what I heard David say could you amend these distances, or are you kind of stuck here based upon what you've got in writing?
I'm sure there's some wiggle room. I think the 1,300-foot length was just primarily to prevent neighborhoods from putting them on cul-de-sacs in every single street, but that is something that's up for debate.
I would think the length of the street should be able to, less than a quarter mile, but it's a cut through something. I would think you could put a table in there or some sort of raised crosswalk. Intersection, you could probably place pretty much anywhere a raised intersection.
Yeah,
Possibly the-
I'm just suggesting maybe we don't hamstring ourselves, that you might have, maybe it's 1,100 feet, right? But hey, I can't do it because we got the policy written.
I think the site distance issue, because of safety, we might need to keep that in mind, but other things.
Councilmember Morthland. Sorry.
To further that commentary, some of the neighborhoods have reached out and asked for police department to do speed monitoring and catch speeders as they come through. And the feedback that they're given is we don't have enough distance to catch for, and I guess it goes
Or there's
into
too much grade.
whatever the case may be, it doesn't work. Are we under that same guidance here for this, to what he was saying, are we under the same measurements that the police department has?
Kind of the same for vertical.
I was trying to help sell this to the neighborhoods.
Is that a federal issue, a state issue, a county
Part of the
issue?
radar permit.
They have to have enough distance for motorists to see them. They can't be hiding behind trees or billboards like in the old days. That's why they do that. It's like a speed trap.
This is state.
Downhill grades,
Yeah.
naturally build up streams, so.
Yeah, they
It's
can't
it's
hide
an
behind
entrapment
it.
issue in those
Yeah.
situations if they're hiding out, but also, it's also the radar will not work if they don't scan it for a certain length or distance. You can't just like grab them as they go, so they have to be able to. I've enjoyed being able to learn more about this with the red laws, but to your point, I get the line of sight. Is your concern with the line of sight that we won't be able to use it in the places we need it?
Yeah,
That's
David.
my concern.
Well, I guess, and there's, if I may, I think it's just a tool in the toolbox. If there's areas that it cannot be used, you would use a different traffic calming measure. We're just trying to increase the variety of things we can do. So Oak Haven's a great example, because that one's just a straightaway, and you can drag race clean down that. Putting in a speed hump somewhere in there, you could maybe Dukes the hazard through your neighborhood, that would be fun. But it gives you an option, whereas in your neighborhood where it's a blind turn, you could do a bulb out or a curb cut or something that would make it to where I can't take that turn as quickly. But I get the concern. I think it's just an added tool.
Yes, it is just an added tool, or we have another option in the city to, traffic.
We're all on the same page. And I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think everybody agrees and very happy to add the extra tools. I think we're just asking, do you have enough flexibility? Because anytime I see something in writing, my experience is, it now becomes the law. So it's not, in other words, I don't usually see, once it goes in writing, I don't see you having the flexibility to say, actually, we can use this tool, actually, we can't use the tool, because it says, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why David's saying, like, we have any flexibility here.
Is there, if I may, is there latitude there for instance, the transportation director to evaluate a particular street or roadway based on its own merit, distance, size, et cetera, and utilize this tool or other tools?
Probably need to add that.
Does that wording of the RDOT director's discussion to remove the device if it's not helping at their speed study, so we could.
We can add it, because you can't use sound engineering judgment to utilize certain things that might be outside the guidelines, but they still might fit for the area, so.
Right.
Is that in here, that beautiful phrase you just used, sound engineering judgment, is that anywhere in here? Because I think if it's not, put it in there, let's put it in there.
It's not currently, but we can.
We can certainly add that.
Okay.
That was just the administrator's recommendation, but Mayor and Council, I defer to you. I'm sorry, Councilmember Morthland.
Yeah,
More my direction.
to finish this up, I mean, this makes sense. Everything about this makes sense. But I will say the speed reduction pavement markings that we did out in front of elementary school, Mountain Park Elementary School, they have very much helped. And the neighborhoods and the school children absolutely appreciate that. So touch on that just real quick, on if there's a need or request, what we do there, because we've done that once before, and the results have been really good here.
Like how we went about the Mountain Park Elementary?
Right.
Actually, it was, we met out there one old December morning. Recognized an issue, saw there was an issue, firsthand saw there was an issue, brought it back to our traffic engineer. He evaluated it, looked at options that would work out there to accommodate the school crossings from the neighborhood, recognizing there was a crossing guard there. Put up a few bollards, things of that nature in-house. We did some striping out there, called like alligator teeth, so it gives the driver perception of they're going faster than they are because they change size as they go down the direction. We can easily do those type of things in-house, very cheap, do it with our supplies budget. We just need to recognize there's an issue and then do things like that. You know, extra visibility on the signage, reflective tape on the posts, things of that nature that really alerts drivers of what's coming. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that was actually a good case study for me, being new to the city at the time, and how we implement things like that.
And it was cold.
Yeah, it was called that one. Yes, sir.
All right, Councilmember Johnson?
Do you have studies that show reduction in speed when these are installed in either neighborhood roads or?
We do, I believe it was 20 to 30% reduction in
Yeah.
speeds.
Yeah, studies show a 20-25% reduction in speeds.
I mean, that's significant when you're looking at a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, and you have an 85th percentile and in the 40s, you know, it brings you pretty much where you're supposed to be.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Sells.
As I listen to some of the conversation, all you're really doing is add, what we're doing here is adding this to the slate of tools that you have.
Yes, sir.
And you have no more or no less judgment around this than you do any of the other tools that you have. So I'm just listening to some of the conversations about, do you have enough judgment?
We would utilize it the same way. Like when we put the alligator teeth in, it was a tool that was already in our toolbox. We went out there, traffic engineer looked at it, evaluated it, determined, yeah, this is a great spot for this. Let's put this in. Let's get this in.
So you'd exercise the exact same nature and style of judgment to decide whether this is the appropriate thing and this is the appropriate place. And you also talked about the fact that, you know, some opt-in with neighborhoods, is that the way they will always be used, or is that just one of the options? What were you saying there?
If it's not a city project, if it's a city project, we would go and we would implement it. The speed we want the people to drive is how we would design the road or implement these traffic calming measures. A neighborhood that would want to implement these would approach us. You know, I think it's 50% or 65% of the people would need to want that particular measure, and then it's a 50/50 cost share as long as funds are available in the budget to accommodate that.
So if I get an HOA for Holcomb Bridge Road on the east side, could I get some traffic calming measures on Holcomb Bridge Road?
If it were one of ours, but unfortunately, that's a GDOT route.
GDOT would say no.
They might frown upon a speed bump.
Speed ticks.
However, we do have some interesting things coming.
The medians out there.
Yes, those are about to come.
Did we get a response
On the median?
on Swaley?
Not the swales. I think the swales were not, but the median, they're actually being ruled about the plantings. They don't want anything.
But since Alan just brought it up, it's worth noting, because probably most folks don't know what's about to happen on Holcomb Bridge on the east side.
Yeah.
Go ahead and share it just for edification.
And how far down it's going to get?
Yeah, so there's approximately 3 median islands being proposed. We could coordinate it with GDOT on the locations. They are rather small. I want to point out they're islands. They're not long-running medians. They're 50 to 100 feet long. They will be landscaped. I believe we just got the encroachment permit approved from GDOT in the past few weeks, and we're going into procurement very soon, if not already, to get that hopefully under construction later this spring.
They'll be out there this spring.
And we spread them out from basically Holcomb Woods Parkway out to near Nesbitt Ferry or Steeplechase. There's 3 of them kind of scattered about.
And this is the first of.
We have 9
Nine.
selected locations,
Right.
but we have 3 that are funded and we haven't approved. There hopefully will be more. Right now, there's 3 on.
That's gonna look great by the time all 9 are there.
So this council's probably gonna ask you, so what do we need to do to get the other 6?
Funded, we'll have to design it and get another encroachment
Let's-
agreement, so we'll go through the same process. we
With
did
the risk
before.
of sounding forward, I'm gonna assume that the council probably would like to see the other 6.
Say that again, Kurt, sorry.
I'm gonna assume that you wanna see the other 6. Whether
Yeah,
you
yeah.
put it tonight.
I was thinking about a bake sale maybe, or something like that.
Well, so to that end, we'll have team members bring back proposals for those other,
Perhaps next committee meeting,
good. Right?
new committee meeting item, right? Why not?
All right, okay,
Process,
all right, good deal. All right, any further questions, comments? All right, if,
Randy,
yes, Councilmember Johnson.
we are gonna put in language that up to your discretion, correct?
in the actual.
Sound engineering judgment, the RDOT director. What if the RDOT director's not an engineer, do we take that out?
In fact, you can take anything.
Or designee.
Yeah, or-
That's right, or designee.
All right. Further question or comment? All right, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to move forward.
Motion by Councilmember Hills, second by Councilmember Johnson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, thank you very much. All right, the final item there is listed under transportation, item number 4, consideration to accept the FY 2024 road resurfacing list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Currently, the city's FY '24 budget allocated just under $2 million for citywide road resurfacing. And I just want to stress, this is the local money. This is not the LMIG money that's provided through the state, which was another almost $1 million, $900-something thousand. So we got that approved through mayor and council back in November and December, the LMIG routes. And just a reminder, those were Crabapple Road, basically the northern part of Canton Street from Woodstock up to Highway 92, and then on the east side, we are redoing all of Old Alabama between the river and Holcomb Bridge Road. So that includes the 2 lanes that were not done as part of the Atlanta waterline relocation project, and it will take up and do all 4 lanes in front of the firehouse at Market Boulevard all the way up to Holcomb Bridge. And that is part of the MIG program that's already been approved. This is strictly the local road resurfacing list. Also, I just want to thank the mayor and council for giving us the tools last year to do our PCI data. That is our pavement condition index. We had a company come out and survey all our roads with sensors and lasers and all kinds of neat gadgets to provide us with a very accurate condition of all of our locally maintained roads here in the city of Roswell. We have taken that information and compiled this list and broken it up into a tier 1 and a future road list based on those scores and what the current budget allotment would allow. I just want to point out that during construction, sometimes staff do make adjustments to the work scope. It's primarily dependent on the patching work. We don't know how much work will be needed under the road surface until the contractors mill the road and remove that top coating. Sometimes we get lucky and there's less work needed, and at other times the road is more damaged and it requires a little bit more patching work. So there is a little bit of fluctuation there. So staff do modify the list slightly within reason in that local area. Usually it's no more than 5 or 10% of the total, but we do that to make sure we're getting a good efficiency out of our contractors. And then also here is the road list. It's broken up into 2 parts. The top list you see here is the full milling and resurfacing. Some of the key roads I just want to point out on here are all of Coleman Road. This is basically from Highway 120, Marietta Highway near the Kroger, going the entire length of Coleman Road up to Hightower and to Pine Grove. So it's the entire run of Coleman between Pine Grove and Highway 120. Another key road I want to highlight here is Hardscrabble Road. This is from Woodstock, Highway 92 by the Super Target over to King Road by the high school. This is significant because if you recall, we're doing the multi-use trail project, hopefully near the end of this year. to add a new multi-use trail from King Road by the high school over to the Super Target. So we'd be doing this work likely at the same time to repave the road because it's not in the best shape. So we're going to try to do 2 projects in one. And also, we're doing the rejuvenation. We do a lot of these roads. We go and add this rejuvenation topping to them. It's usually on roads that were recently repaved, usually within the past 2 years. This adds a lot of life and adds an extra coating to them that prolongs their life and adds quite a bit of time until we have to resurface them again. In your packets, I also have the future road list. Those are all additional roads that we would do when funding allows. So we would likely procure all of the road list, not only the ones on your screen, but the future road list as well. So we'd be moving into procurement assuming this item is approved. And again, the funding is available in the budget at $1.99 million. I'll yield for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Questions, Mayor and Council. Councilmember Beeson.
Can you refresh my memory, when are we due up for Canton Street's resurfacing? The main drag?
And I think 2026.
Okay,
From
and the,
Canton Street from, I think it's,
From
Woodstock.
from Woodstock to Highway 9? So it's 2026 it's due?
That's our target.
target. It could be adjusted next year, I mean, it could be anytime in 2026.
Is that based on PCI or budget? Because there are some potholes in there.
we can
Yeah.
take the potholes in the
Thank you.
meantime, of course.
Yeah, if we could patch that sooner rather than later.
And also, are the crosswalks kind of faded on some areas of Canton Street? There might be some
There
texture.
there are,
Yeah.
there probably are.
Okay.
And we can so we can look.
Yeah, just since you brought it up.
Councilmember Hall.
I was just going to suggest the app, because I think you've been very responsive when I've taken a picture of a crosswalk or something like that I notice as I'm driving around, they've come out and painted it.
Oh, they can do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it gets addressed very, very quickly. So if you see stuff like that, just snap a picture and send it in. It's faster than sending an email internally, I swear to God.
It goes directly to the people that actually do it. Instead of me having.
Where is this magic sauce?
The app, to your point, this is obviously, there's areas that can be patched. Just given the fact that we had the pipe break this past year, it's right in that same area too, the crosswalks that are beginning to fade. It seems to need a little bit of an overhaul, given the fact that it's highly traveled, both on foot and car. But understood if these are higher priority, that's understood.
Yes, Councilmember Hills.
Thank you. Would you gentlemen just give a refresher? I'm pretty sure I know, but for anyone listening and anybody here, the difference between how these get on the milling and resurfacing versus rejuvenation, and what the expectation is on the rejuvenation, like, what does that do?
Rejuvenation has been about 5 good years in the life cycle of the road. The cost minimal comparison. Yeah, we actually did a study here at the city back in 2016. That's what we came up with.
Good, wonderful. The Roswell app is very popular. Roswell app is very popular. In all seriousness, I have it. I'd actually used it once, twice, and the response.
I got those calls. Thank you, Mr. Knight.
Still good directed action.
But we do encourage people to download the Roswell app and the web service portal, report a concern, take a picture, and send it forth. And it is connected to staff members, or the appropriate staff members, depending on what the issue is. And I have heard rave reviews about the response, being very, very quick and very, very efficient, and we're able to record those, keep a record of them. And so I do encourage people to utilize that tool. Of course, if you need to call us, that's fine, or send an email, that's great too. But there are many tools that the residents can access their government and receive a prompt response. So thank you for mentioning. All right, further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Councilmember Hills, second by Councilmember Johnson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, thank you. That does conclude the Community Development and Transportation Committee meeting for January 23rd, 2024. We'll entertain a motion of adjournment. Motion, Councilmember Beeson, second, Councilmember Sells. All in favor? All right, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.